Did you ever wonder if your lawn would make a nice garden? Or ever curious about the existing soil in your current garden? Well, today I'm going to share with you 3 easy soil tests to help increase your chances of gardening success. Let's get dirty.
Okay, you got some fruits and vegetables, aquaponics, in a greenhouse. Get deep sometimes, growing stuff. Yeah.
Hi friends, welcome. I recently moved and wanted to get a good start on upping my backyard gardening game for my fruits and vegetables. The previous owners already had a pretty impressive flower bed out back, so I knew gardening was possible, but as I want to maximize my productivity, I really wanted to make sure that the soil could handle the load that I wanted to put on it. So here's how I went about evaluating my soil to make my gardening plan.
One.
So the first test was just a basic dig test, actually. I wanted to see how far down the soil went before it hit things like hard clay or stones or like a cable line or something. I called ahead, I didn't hit anything. What I was looking for was a good 10 to 12 inches as I want to do some high intensity farming. But as it didn't measure up, I have to do a little soil amendment to get to where I need to be. Second test was a simple soil composition test. I already knew that I wanted to build up the level of my soil, and this test helped me to determine what was already in the soil so that I could plan out what to bring to amend it with. Here's how I did it. For the soil composition test, you only need a few things: mason jar, some water, and some soil. So for this soil, I have pulled it from 3 different locations in different spots in my garden. And what we'll do is we'll take a good amount of one of the samples and we'll add it to the jar. You're gonna want a little over half, probably say half to 3/4 worth. When you put some water in, it's going to compact down and all of the space in between the soil is just going to level out. You don't need the rocks. Maybe one more. So that ought to do it. And when you're filling with water, you want a little bit of air left in there because you want some room for it to agitate when you shake it around. Get the lid on good and tight so you don't make a mess or much of one. And then you just shake it up and you give it a really good shake. This is probably going to go for a little bit here.
2 minutes later.
So after shaking it for a minute or two and really getting everything nice and turned in there, you're going to want to let it settle. And letting these settle for anywhere from a few minutes to a few hours will really make the difference on how well you can see the different layers in it. This one I've had setting for over a day now, and it's pretty distinct to see the different layers in it. As my goal was 20% clay, 40% silt, and 40% sand, you could see that I had some amending to do. Most of which I'll fix with some loam and compost. There are a wide array of things you could be looking for from this test, but for the basics, this should be enough for now.
God, I want some pancakes.
For the third test, I wanted to check the acidity of the soil to see if I was in that sweet spot. Having a pH that's too high or too low really makes it difficult to grow anything. For your acidity or your pH test, it is very easy, very DIY, and most of what you're looking for you should already have in your kitchen. some containers to do the mixing for the tests, some filtered clean water. We'll need some white vinegar as well as some baking soda. For the soil, we're just going to use the same samples from the previous tests, and I've also brought along some loam from the local landscaping company, just so we have something to measure it against. Now, for pH, most of what people are going to see throughout their lives is a 0 to 14 scale. 0 would be something very acidic, like battery acid, and a 14 would be something very basic, like you might see in a heavy-duty cleaner, with 7 being neutral, and it's what most people aim for. And we'll start off with the acidity test, which is going to need the baking soda. So for this one, we'll start out by making a baking soda solution. Give her about halfway there. Good amount of baking soda. Give this a little mix. So we have a very basic solution here, and by adding the soil to it, if there is a reaction, it will let us know that it is acidic. Use a couple scoops of our soil. Mix that up a little bit. And if there's a little bit of reaction, we're not too worried. We're wanting to stay away from anything violent or, well, not explosive, but, you know, a large reaction. So we can see a few bubbles out of it. That's nothing out of the ordinary. Again, it's not a significant reaction, so we're not too worried about this. For the alkaline or basic soil test, we'll start off by putting about the same amount of vinegar as we had the baking soda solution. So we'll give her about halfway there. And again, add a few tablespoons of our soil and give her a good mix. So we can definitely see that there is a reaction. Some bubbles forming. We do have some height on it too. It's not a violent reaction, but probably something you're going to want to amend. Now, I'll be adding a bunch of compost to this, which will help to bring it down a little bit. But for things like tomatoes or any other plants that need it to be a bit more acidic, I'll probably be looking at some sulfur or maybe some ferrous sulfate or something. So what we'll do is, just to see where we measure up on a community scale, I'll run the same test on some soil from the local landscaping company. Here we have some loam, just some screened loam, and we'll add it in. Give her a mix there. And not much of a reaction here. Oh, I spoke too soon. So it looks like soil in my neighborhood is just a little basic. Again, not a big deal. There is a little bit of a reaction. It's nothing violent. This is probably something, again, we'll amend with some compost or something stronger for our tomatoes. If it was something like a violent reaction, we would definitely want to go a bit higher. And if it was a violent reaction, you might want to reconsider where you're choosing to grow. Of course, there are also kits you can buy, or even send the soil away to a lab if you really want to get specific. So I wanted to share a little bit more about the soil amendments that I was mentioning earlier in the video. Now, I brought 3 samples to share with you guys, and the first one is just a standard soil that I had brought in, and it complements what I'm trying to accomplish with my soil as far as the pH goes. This one's a little bit more acidic to complement my alkaline soil. It'll help balance it out. Pretty straightforward. The next one is a compost that I brought from my bin out back. Now, this one contains all of my kitchen scraps. It's got some lawn clippings, some cardboard for carbon, some dried leaves, and a few other things, trying to keep it as organic as possible. Now, when I'm mixing this with my soil, I believe the standard ratio is a 1 to 5 of compost to soil. I'm going a little bit more aggressive though, because it's pretty much all organic. I'm not really worried about it burning my plants or doing any damage. And the last one that I have here is some standard coffee grounds, actually. Just used coffee grounds. And I get these from my local coffee shop. They actually give away big bags of their discarded coffee grounds, so I can get them in pretty large volume. They're slightly acidic, but they are really high in nitrogen, which will be really good for my tomatoes and a few other things. Also makes really good compost. Again, if your soil is really out of whack for its pH, you could always use some sulfur or some lime to help balance it out, depending on which way it's going. Definitely do a bit more research if you want to start messing with those things. I'd probably send my soil away to a lab for testing so I can get some exact numbers and do a lot more research on the application of those, just so that you're not completely skronking up your soil. Hoo-ha-wah! So I hope this helps with some garden planning if you're just starting out. If you're established, maybe there's something in here that helps you take an even closer look at your dirt. If you have any helpful tips or tricks, please let me know in the comments. And thanks for letting me share. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.